Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of congregational humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. Thank you for joining us.
So Ralph Waldo Emerson said that nothing is secure in life. Nothing is secure but life, transition, and the energizing spirit. People wish to be settled. Only insofar as they are unsettled is there any hope for them. And I want to thank everybody for going along with a little unsettling earlier in the service when I took things in the wrong order. So thank you. It wasn't intentional, but I guess it means there's hope for y'all. I want to begin by offering gratitude for the recent warm weather. You see, I said in the blurb about this service that, as is true for our reliance on air conditioning, it's easy to get used to having our human environment organized to please us and our ways of being. Now, I may take the analogy a little too far this morning, but just as there are benefits to sitting on the front porch to cool off on a summer night, there are benefits to choosing to be in the presence of difference, even when it makes us uncomfortable. And I want you to feel a bit uncomfortable today, which is why I hope this bit of heat means that you can identify with that feeling, as well as with the comfort that air conditioning offers. Maybe that will help my message to sink in a bit further. And I offer a little bit of a caveat in case you think I'm being a bit frivolous with this analogy. I do, of course, know that air conditioning saves lives. I know and am grateful for the comfort it offered my mother, whose multiple sclerosis left her with little tolerance for temperature change. I know that there are many people suffering in the world for lack of it. I also know the heavy tax it takes on our energy grid and its contribution, quite ironically, to climate change. So while I'm using air conditioning not literally, but rather to help us imagine feeling both comfort and discomfort, just know that I'm not unaware of the reality of air conditioning. So, do you feel more comfortable now? And of course, air conditioning is convenient and comfortable when it's sweltering outdoors. It takes the humidity out of the air, it allows us to breathe, to move freely, to get things done, to have physical energy, to put on one set of clothes and not have to change because they get soaked out from sweat. Air conditioning, allows our brains to think without the stress of heat and to relax and to sleep well, to get our work done in relative comfort. And no wonder we like it. We rely on it. In a similar way, many of us have found ways to control how we go about in the world. We travel in circles of familiarity, have friendships with the like-minded who speak the same language, take in the news and entertainment we choose, and find silos of connection on social media. And in our Western culture, it can be quite easy to live a conditioned life. We can begin to feel that the way we see the world is the best, if not the only way to exist. And without a doubt, a conditioned life is the easiest. It's been engineered to suit us. It's the path of least resistance. It makes collaboration and projects go smoother and faster. There's little that comes along to addle our brains. We don't have to question or change our way of doing things. The systems we've crafted around us, we've made to work for us. But have you ever heard someone say that they don't like air conditioning because it feels like fake air? Indeed, it is not coming to us unaltered. It's like it's been genetically engineered. And perhaps once in a while we notice that, and we get that nagging feeling that we're living in a bubble. But then, of course, we get into our sun-drenched cars on a summer midday, and instead of stopping what we're doing and asking questions about what we're feeling, we turn the air conditioning on full blast until we can again feel, well, comfortable. Because without air-conditioned air, without that conditioning, we are forced to feel the direct impact of the elements, the real world over which we have little control. And so it's much easier to look away and step back into our own bubbles. And, well, of course, that is if we have the privilege of having such a bubble. And yet I would argue that a conditioned life is not the privilege it would seem to be. One of my favorite poems is Rumi's Guest House, which asks us to welcome and entertain whatever comes to our door. That is, to welcome whatever reality confronts us. Rumi said, even if it's a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, invite it in. Invite it in because it may be clearing you out for some new delight. And wouldn't that be something? To be cleared out for some new delight, some new possibility. So while uncomfortable, there promises to be huge benefit when we expose ourselves to the real world, to actually live in the real world, because it is there that we confront things that call us to engage in being self-reflective and to wonder why we feel unsettled, to stop, to ask questions. Why do I feel so uncomfortable? Do I feel threatened? Am I resisting something? What can I learn here? It's in the real world that we find our greatest teachers, because there we encounter things as yet unknown, which indeed can be very uncomfortable for those of us with big brains. It makes us squirm to not yet understand something. And yet we have to be in the place of not knowing in order to learn something new. In the real world, that's where we're confronted with what Thoreau called the whole and genuine meanness of life. Of course, we can look at Thoreau's escape to the woods as an escape from real life. Yet for him, I think he went there to escape what had become a comfortable and removed existence, at least from the natural world. It is in the real world that we can know and feel the pain of others, where we can exercise our compassion, where we can find meaning and purpose. Now, my intent today is not to suggest any particular exposure to the elements. My focus is on my or our white normative experience of living in a comfortable space where our perceptions and experiences are centered. My concern is that the world around us is changing at lightning speed, and that there are big changes coming for this congregation too. And when we've gotten too comfortable, when we're confronted with things that jangle our reality, it's easy, maybe even natural, to react defensively, to go into hiding, to feel that we deserve our comfort, and that any challenge to that comfort is a threat, and that our privilege, our existence, is being attacked. And that means we stay stuck in places where we can't even imagine what it feels like to be free. Surely it's true that when we feel uncomfortable, we can react thoughtlessly and even harmfully. What if instead we could learn to welcome discomfort as an invaluable friend? We have to be discomforted in order to embrace or encourage change. In the words of Dennis McCarthy in his book, A Gadfly Report, he said, "Progress and enrichment do not come from maintaining one's own comfort level. Enrichment can't come from maintaining our comfort. Enrichment and positive change come from becoming more comfortable with being uncomfortable." And so it would seem the skill we need is to exist in discomfort without the skill we need is to exist in discomfort without reactivity, to welcome it, and to learn to live with greater humility and curiosity. To be willing really to stick it out in the real world. Now, don't go thinking I have this figured out. I'm not immune to feeling uncomfortable and wanting to get away from it. Let me be uncomfortably vulnerable here and say that sometimes, as one example, my introverted self can get quite uncomfortable and even judgmental in the presence of those who live big and loud. This, even though I believe in each person's right to express themselves. This, even though I want to delight in the many ways that we are different. And so I try, sometimes successfully, to just get curious in those moments and wonder why I feel uncomfortable, especially in the presence of someone who's living their authentic selves, to find those questions that have been patiently waiting for me so that something can get a hold of me and I might be changed. What are the questions patiently waiting for you? What are those places, those unconditioned places? Is it when you're in the midst of cultural difference, unfamiliar locations, gender diversity, maybe particularly as expressed in pronouns, in the company of a social class different than your own, in conversation with someone of a different political persuasion, or maybe when you see the truth of violence or genocide or famine around the world? How might you be changed by allowing yourself to be in those uncomfortable places, to stick with it and not to turn away or escape? Man, we resist that. It's so hard. But here's the thing. It's a practice. So it's completely normal for it to be hard and uncomfortable to be uncomfortable. Just know that making you uncomfortable is a part of my job as your interim minister. I am, in fact, your discomfort trainer. During a transition, more than ever it is true, as is often said, a minister's job is to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. In Martin Luther King Jr.'s words, we must open ourselves to re-education, and in that process, change the narrative of how we view ourselves. We need to compel ourselves to acknowledge and to listen to those who are unlike us, those who are at the margins. We need to pester ourselves to name things clearly and face them head on, and to begin to recognize how conditioned our lives are, which for many of us is conditioning that's steeped in white supremacy culture and white fragility, and come to recognize our lives as something really not all that well examined. Dennis McCarthy, in the book I mentioned earlier, makes several important points about being discomforted. First, he says that clinging to the comforts of privilege and rejecting change and learning means that we'll miss out on the brightest possibilities in our future. You know, if we truly believe in evolution, then we have to be willing to engage in the change it requires. He reminds us that we are not prisoners of our comfort, not unless we choose to be. Second, he says we are a covenantal faith, and that covenant is not about being perfect. Our covenant with one another asks us to be humble. Covenant is about seeking understanding, overcoming our personal and institutional egos, and getting back into relationship when and where relationship has been damaged. Humbly. Covenant can be uncomfortable, and yet it is the glue that binds us to one another. And lastly, we have chosen to be here together. This is a free, voluntary association. We've chosen to be fellow travelers exploring this ever-changing landscape. We don't have the answers yet. We never do. And yet we're not done with our changes, so let's keep stopping to ask questions. Keep on stopping to ask questions. Pondering, being curious and forthright, getting comfortable with discomfort. It takes some courage to step out of our conditioned bubbles and to sit on the front porch even in sweltering heat. But doing so, it enables us to get to know our neighbors and the realities of their lives. It also allows them to get to know us in our imperfection and our vulnerability. It is within this neighborhood of authentic diversity that we can find greater love and justice and equity. If we can get to that place together, I believe that we can move toward a human, intellectual, and social abundance previously unknown to us, that place of bright possibility, a greater humanity than we have known. So let's go there. Let us be discomforted in the service of a shining vision. May it be so.
Thanks for listening. You can find much more about humanism and what's happening at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis by visiting our website at firstunitarian.org.